So thanks for breaking one of my Game Boy Advance SPs, worthless piece of crap. So what kind of collection is that with only 2 Game Boy Advance SPs? Yeah, that's right, I don't just own one Game Boy Advance. I own multiple. And it all started off, well, not with this one. You see, back in the day, I grew up actually playing the Game Boy Advance SP, and I played lots of games like Super Mario Advance 4, aka Super Mario Bros. 3, and Super Mario World. And, well, I actually had a silver Game Boy Advance SP, but the R button broke on it. And so I ended up just trading it in and replacing it with a new one, aka this one. Instead of just fixing it, I decided, you know what, I'm going to buy a new one. I always wanted a flame red Game Boy Advance SP, as my cousin had one back then, and well, I ended up getting this one, but I also wanted more, and I ended up getting the silver one back in somehow worse condition. At least I got it for a good price, though. And just when you thought that that was enough, I was like, oh, now I gotta keep the journey going. I want a regular Game Boy Advance. Yeah, there's no backlight or anything on this, but, I mean, it's still really cool for the novelty. The one downside is it doesn't have a back cover, and it only has a little clear cover. So that kind of sucks, but nonetheless, this was actually in really good condition. I caused these scratches. And later on down the road, I picked up myself a Japanese Game Boy Advance SP, complete in box from a local retro game store, which is actually where I got all of these from. All of these Game Boy Advances from, except for one of them, which we'll get into. But, I basically got this because I always wanted a Game Boy Advance SP complete in box, and I couldn't find one for a good enough price. And to actually be able to have one there physically, to be actually be able to see it, I was like, you know what, I can see the quality. The system itself is pretty good. It's a light blue, and it's actually in really good condition, considering for, you know, this being a somewhat scuffed box, but it's pretty good condition. Now I still have to get a AGS 101, which is a backlight model, but I've got these. Now you're probably like, well, this is enough for what you wanted, right? Now, believe it or not, the reason for me getting at least 4 of these was so I could play The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures on the GameCube with 4 link cables and full multiplayer. And unfortunately, my addiction doesn't stop there. That's where eBay comes into hand with a Who Are You special edition of the Game Boy Advance SP. Now, I've always wanted a special edition Game Boy Advance SP as well, and for the price that I picked this up for at the time was actually pretty good, and I'm kind of glad I got this because I look at these now and they're a little bit higher than what I paid for. But the Who Are You edition was a really weird thing. I still don't even know the full story of. I was just like, Who Are You edition? Awesome. The problem is with trying to get special edition consoles is a lot of people will try and give you fake, you know, shells and all that, and I don't want that. I want the authentic stuff. Which led me to my last Game Boy Advance console, the Cobalt Blue Game Boy Advance SP. This was the last one and the final one I think I'll be picking up, because I always wanted the blue one as well. Ever since I saw it after the red one, I was like, well, I gotta get the blue. I may not have Pokemon Red and Blue, but does this count? Some might say this is too many, but I think this is pretty perfect. Now, sure, a complete in-boxed one could have replaced one of these. Yeah, but like, come on, it's a Japanese one. And what about the original Game Boy Advance? I had to get one of those too. So here's kind of just some of the games that I have. I've got complete in-box collections and, well, like most people, loose games. Well, let's start with some of our loose games. So we've got the entire Super Mario Advance collection, starting with the weird titling of Super Mario Advance 1, Super Mario Advance 2, Super Mario Advance 3, and Super Mario Advance 4, aka Super Mario Bros. 2 USA, Super Mario World, Yoshi's Island, and Super Mario Bros. 3. I know, weird. Then we have Advance Wars 1, Advance Wars 2 Black Hole Rising, F-Zero GP Legends, and Legend of Zelda 4 Swords, GBA version. Then we have WarioWare Mega Micro Games. We've got Donkey Kong Country, Mario Party Advance, not even a real Mario Party, and JB had to write on it. Sonic Advance, Connect 4, Perfection and Trouble, another collection of games that's actually a really good classic of mine growing up. Battleship Risk and Clue, and Monster Truck Madness. Now these are just some of my loose games, and these all are pretty, kept hold to me for a long time. Like, for example, mainly these games. These were the games that I basically grew up with here, these 6. I do have some extras that we're going to throw in here. But these are the ones that I kind of grew up with, and me buying some of these other ones like Advance Wars and getting myself into those back in 2020, and F-Zero GP Legends, which I recently bought, and Legend of Zelda 4 Swords, but not the 4 Sword Adventures, which is on the GameCube. We also have to talk about the classic NES series. I only have 2 loose cartridges, and this one I actually had growing up. As you can see, it kind of has some wear, and this one I did buy online for only like $5, so I was like, yeah, it looks pretty good, why not? And that's the classic NES series. But what about the original Game Boy? Well, here you go. So we got Pac-Man and Defender and Joust, the arcade classics. These 2 I had growing up, and I played these a lot. I love playing both of them, even though it was only in black and white, and if you held like the buttons down and pressed the D-pad while the boot screen was loading, you would actually change the colors. But these games are fantastic. They're a lot of fun. Pac-Man's typical Pac-Man, and Defender and Joust are a really cool arcade game that I never got to experience in an actual arcade setting. But playing it here on the cartridge is pretty damn fun, and the soundtrack for this game, Defender, is through the roof. But later on I did buy Donkey Kong 94, and it's kind of similar to your classic arcade Donkey Kong, and basically it ends up turning into this whole big adventure game, and it's a lot of fun. If you ever played Mario vs. Donkey Kong on the Game Boy Advance, this is the better one. Worse graphically, but the better one, and most people who have played it prefer this one, I think. But what about the Pokemon games? Here's Pokemon Pinball, Ruby and Sapphire. This is what my brother had growing up, and well, he ended up giving it to me. And this was actually a pretty fun game. I did play it. I actually had Pac-Man Pinball, which I currently don't have anymore. But my brother ended up having this game, and it was a lot of fun for just being a pinball game. And later on, I ended up getting Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. This game actually I got for free. Someone just gave it to me. They didn't want it, so I got kind of lucky with this. Even though I'm not really a Pokemon person, I do think that this is a pretty cool one to have. Sure, it's not a mainline Pokemon game, but one mainline Pokemon game we have is Pokemon Silver version. Not only that, they included the case and the Silver version training guide with it. Speaking of the trainer's guide, I've actually never really looked through this guide. I've meant to look through it at some point, and I still have yet to play a little bit more of Pokemon Silver. I only just booted it up, tried it out, make sure it was working, and I plan to eventually get to this game, but I definitely wanted to explore the trainer's guide because I'm not the best Pokemon player, but I have played Pokemon Diamond. That was actually my first one. But Silent Fox, you ask, what about the complete in-box games? Well, fear no more, because here they are. Now, I'm joking, I clearly have more here, but this is my North American complete in-box versions of these games. So I've got Super Mario Bros. 3, aka Super Mario Advance 4. The titling still confuses me to this day, but looking at the back, it's pretty much the same old stuff that we like to expect on our complete in-box games. And unfortunately, the Game Boy Advance games came in cardboard, so one day this is gonna kind of piss out on me. But that's not the only game we have complete in box here. We also got Mario Kart Super Circuit, and you can see there's the giant Player's Choice logo above it. Disgusting. Now, of course, I had to get the Super Mario Advance 4 game complete in box, and that's just because it's my favorite game of all time on the Game Boy Advance. Because of the extra levels. Now, we'll get into that later, because I have some accessories to talk about. So yeah, we got Super Mario Advance 4. We've got Mario Kart Super Circuit. We've also got Mario Party Advance. That's a lie. Then we have Game & Watch Gallery 4 with 6 games in one, all remastered with high-res graphics, which is pretty cool. How can we forget the Advance Wars series? This one was awesome to get complete in box, along with its buddy, Advance Wars 2 Black Hole Rising, my favorite game. I've decided to rearrange things because we're not done, because we got F-Zero GP Legends complete in box. We've got The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, plus Four Swords, which is a multiplayer experience only, along with 2 copies of my childhood favorite game, Risk, Battleship, and Clue, the 3-in-1 game pack. Now, believe it or not, these are 2 different versions, and I bought both of these brand new. And for only about $15 each, it's pretty worth it. I mean, this one's sealed, and I put it in a complete, case to protect it, as I don't want to open this one, but I did open this one, as well as this game was also sealed. And, yeah, sure, it devalued the game, but, I'm not going to sell these. Now, these are all the North American copies of the Game Boy Advance loose games and the complete in-box games. But we have not yet hit the Japanese games yet. But first, let's just kind of go around the game boxes a little bit, kind of show them off a little bit. They're pretty cool. They got a lot of fun stuff to look at here. The reason why I got these is because I just really enjoy looking at the art sometimes, and of course the booklets themselves are really nice to look at. I really love how this one kind of shines with the box here. The way they got that to work was pretty cool. But I always just found it really fun to just look at some of the box art itself. And just kind of look and see, what they had back then. Especially this one. Classic for me. But these games do hold a lot to me, and growing up, not having these games and really wishing to be able to have these, it's always been on my list to be able to try to get some of these, because I see people with all their collections and I'm like, well, I want to do that too. And yes, it does cost some money, especially nowadays. It is at its highest right now, I think, with retro gaming, and it's really sad, which is why I'm glad I got all this out of the way before it skyrocketed. Because, man, if I had to go through all of this and trying to buy all these in today's day, I would probably be out of money. That's obviously a joke, but, it definitely would take a good chunk out of your wallet for, trying to purchase a lot of these games nowadays. It's just kind of crazy how it's skyrocketed. And then, of course, the lovely 2 Advance Wars games. These games are just really awesome. I grew up playing... Well, I didn't really grow up playing, but back in 2020, early 2020, I actually basically played this game and gave it a shot on an emulator and checked it out first before actually making the purchase. And I gotta say, it was pretty damn fun, and it's probably one of my favorite purchases I've ever made. Being able to go through all the manuals and stuff of all these games is just super awesome. The Advance Wars series itself is pretty cool. But before we show the Japanese collection, we gotta talk about this first. The Game Boy Advance video cartridges. I only had the Yu-Gi-Oh one, which was given to me by some friend, and I don't even watch Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't even really care for anime, it's just not my style. But my anime of choice was SpongeBob. And so I saw this online, and I was like, well, the boxes beat the hell up for the price it was, which is only about 15 bones, where these things were going for like 25. This thing I had bought somewhat recently. It was just like, you know what, I'll just spend it. The 20 bones is fine, or 15, I don't remember, somewhere around there. It's fine. I want a complete in box copy at least, because otherwise I was going to get sealed, and I was already going to be paying a lot for it, and this box has seen better days. Let's just say that. But yeah, there was a bunch of different cartridges that came with this, and it was really cool to see. And I only had the Yu-Gi-Oh one, and now that I have this, I can finally be complete. At least I get to watch the SpongeBob pizza delivery episode. The one thing about these is they were not compatible with the Game Boy Player. But if you didn't have the Game Boy Player, and you were on the go, which is more likely how you're watching these, which is on like a road trip or something, you'd be watching these in the car, so, you know, this was perfect. But let's take a look at that crunchy video. You'll see by this intro. This is the compression that we're talking about here. That's disgusting. Yeah, obviously nowadays, you know, listening to that, the compression, it's pretty bad. But back then, that was something really cool. And now we finally get to the Japanese collection. So starting with the Game Boy Advance SP that I showed off earlier, came from Japan, but I did not order it from Japan. I actually ordered it from the retro game store near me, which was really nice. Now how about them games? Well, just like how North America had the NES series, well, Japan did this similar thing with their system, the Famicom, doing the Famicom series, the classic Famicom series, aka that. And they came in a collection that you can only get through Club Nintendo, or you can buy them separately, like this. And they would basically come in the standard versions. They would basically come inside of, you know, a small version of the original Famicom's box art, and they would also come in the black and white color of the system. But for the Famicom Disk System games, they would come in a pure yellow because they were on floppy disks. And that's how they were done, and that's kind of cool that they went with the inspiration of, instead of using just generic, you know, gray like you have for this Japanese game, which in most standard Game Boy Advance games, the NES Classic series and the obvious Famicom Classic series, they went with a, you know, unique color. And there were some Game Boy Advance games that had unique color cartridges, like some of the Donkey Kong games on the Game Boy Advance, and, you know, Yoshi games. But in Japan, they did the Famicom series with the nice, you know, Famicom colors, the red system and the white bottom, as well as, or sorry, the red bottom and the white top of the system, and then of course the cartridge of the floppy disks, which was really cool. So for the loose copies, all we have here is Super Mario Bros., which is the original classic Super Mario Bros. On the NES series, and then the Super Mario Bros. 2, the lost hard one, the really difficult Super Mario Brothers. It's the aka Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. That's what we know it in North America as. And what's really nice about these is that, you know, it does feel like a little fun color to your system, so that's kind of something. But yeah, this is the Super Mario Bros. 2, aka The Lost Levels. So you can actually play the hard game portably, just like how you could, you know, otherwise you'd have to import it or play it on the Super Nintendo back in the day. And of course they obviously did updated remastered graphics, whereas this way, you can play it in its original graphic style. Now that is the nice thing about the Game Boy Advance, is it does have, you know, no region lock. It's region free, and it's super nice. That's why I love collecting for the system, because it's basically, it allows for any games from anywhere around the world, and you can basically play them, and it's super cool. Let's talk about the Famicom Mini series, which is these games here. These are the loose ones I have, but this is a complete in-box one, and it was pretty cool packaging they got here. Nice little clear box to kind of show it around. It's pretty small. I mean, here's my hand compared to the thing, and it's pretty tiny, even here, compared to a Game Boy Advance. It's pretty small. And these things were really cool, you know. Little screenshots, everything's in Japan. Unfortunately, I don't, you know, read Japan, but nonetheless, I had to pick this up for the price it was at, and it was really cool, and I'm glad I made this purchase because it does hold a special place in my heart. I mean, the Game Boy Advance, you know, the Famicom stuff, the Japanese, it's all really cool. What about the games? Well, here they are. It was funny because the other day my brother saw these and he was like, oh, these look like boxes of candy, and that's kind of what I think Japan was kind of going for when they're doing this. They kind of want to make something really cool and cute. I noticed that Japan likes to do that. It's really cool, actually, compared to like a North American copy of the game. Like, let's compare Super Mario Bros. 3. You see, you have like the similar art style, but it's just kind of put horizontally, and it's really cool. It's got the pretty much same inspiration here, kind of the same general idea, and it's just really cool. Some of the differences between them. It's kind of neat, but yeah, the boxes were definitely a lot smaller, and it was really cool. And yeah, when my brother did say they look like candy boxes, it does kind of look like it, but it's pretty damn cool. So what games do I have here? Well, I've got Dr. Mario and Puzzle League, and this is also part of the Happy Mario 20th anniversary for Mario Day, Mario's 20th anniversary. That's when this came around, and I was actually in high school during this time, and I actually bought this online through Amazon, originally trying to buy Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color complete in box, which I ended up doing, but I ended up also selling that too. But I ended up trying to buy that, and the person who put the listing and the categories, they put this in there, and it was complete in box for only like 20 bones, and I was like, what? $25? That's a steal. And this was my first Japanese complete in box game, which I think was actually my first complete in box game. And then later on I ended up getting Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color. But this game, I'll never forget the whole situation I got myself in with this one. Basically got it for a steal price, and in the condition it was in was really good. So, and it's just amazing. Even when you open up some of the sides, you can see even there's Peach with a little pill here. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I've got Dr. Mario and Puzzle League, so it was a 2-in-1 game, which is actually right here. We have Super Mario Advance 4, aka Super Mario Bros. 3. Now this little logo here, I'll kind of talk about this a little later when I talk about the accessories, because there's a little special thing about these. And then of course I bought Mario Party Advance 4, you know, the Japanese version. And well, my original intention of getting this was, there's these game boards that are included, which is actually shown right here. The seller that sold me this advertised that everything was complete in box here, and that this was coming with it. Lo and behold, I end up getting this, and I look through it, and I see that that's not in there, and I was a little upset. Actually, pretty upset, because that was the whole reason I was getting this, because I wanted that Japanese version of it. Plus, I also noticed that the box has a little, like, sparkle to it, which is really cool. And yeah, I mean, I probably would have gotten this anyway, but I probably would have gone for like a better looking one, although there weren't that many to get. The Mario Advance complete in box ones are expensive and just hard to get for some reason. You can find them, but you're going to find them for a really high price, unfortunately. So I'm kind of glad I got it, but I'm a little upset that I didn't get the little bonus game board, which you would basically set up a Game Boy Advance SP or a regular Advance, and you would just do the second mode that basically allowed you to, see if I can focus on that, basically allow you to roll a dice, and then you go around the board playing it like normal, like a Mario Party board game here, and you basically have like a virtual dice on there, and then whatever you land on, you know, if there's like a mini game, so you go to the left for mini game, and to the right for, you know, doing this little mystery box star thing. So it was kind of cool like that, and I forgot the whole specific rules of this, but it's really interesting nonetheless, and the fact that the box just has this glossy look to it, I think was a well worth it purchase for this one. Not last but not least, because we have actually one more that I haven't shown yet, which I actually bought the most recently. But this is Super Mario Advance 2, aka Super Mario World. And this game, in its little original, like, when it arrived, it was like perfect. Like, I mean, this thing I had never seen like any dents, and I think this was kind of caused to me because I had to open it, and these things are a pain in the ass to open. Let me tell you, without putting creases, it is hard to do. I actually put a crease in this one, and I was very pissed off when I did that, because this was in pristine condition for this little thing in here, and I ended up putting a little dent in it, and I was like, God damn it. But yeah, I mean, these boxes are just fantastic. But this is the Japanese one. So I did get both of these, even though, you know, it's like I already have them, but having the Japanese one is just something cool about that. And finally, we have Game Boy Wars Advance 1+2, which is literally just Advance Wars 1 and 2 in Japan, but put together. You see, they released both of the games on one cartridge. That's kind of how they decided to do it. And it's kind of cool, you get your own little like unique menu screen here. So what's really cool about this one is you have this new loading screen that's not the same as the originals, and it takes you straight away to this with this banger of a song. It was really great, and by clicking start, you have the option of just doing one or the other. If answer is one or two, and then once you do it, it loads in like the game like normally. But it's just really cool that they're both on one cartridge, but separately, put away like this. Kind of cool. You're probably wondering why did I get like the same versions of the games I already have, but in Japan, or sorry, in Japanese. Well, you see here, this one came with a little pre-order of the game in Japan with Game Boy Wars, and the tag says, "Don't tell your mom," with a little code here, and it's officially by Nintendo. It's not bullshit. It's legit by Nintendo. This is a legit pre-order that came with the game, and I saw this with it, and this is the only one I could find with this. So I am one of few people who owns this. So yeah, that's kind of the Japanese complete in box stuff, even with the Game Boy Advance and all the loose games that I have. These are really awesome. They hold a special place in my heart, and I've gotta say, collecting for us has been a lot of fun. But we are not finished because we have accessories to go over. Now, the Game Boy Advance SP did not have a headphone jack. Nowhere on the console did it have it. It had a volume slider for loud volume to play out in the room if you wanted to, but what if you wanted to listen to it by yourself? Well, you had to buy this adapter. Now, this is not an official Nintendo one, but they did make official Nintendo ones. And you basically plug in your headphones into there, plug it into the charging cable here, which sucks because now you can't charge your Game Boy Advance while, listening to headphones. But you can at least do multiplayer link play with this in, which is always kind of nice. But yeah, the regular Game Boy Advance actually had a headphone jack here, so you can listen to it with it built in. But that's not all. See, the Game Boy Advance had this adapter, which was like a little charger pack thing. Now, I forgot the specific name, but it was just a power adapter. And so my initial thought was this was a portable battery for the Game Boy Advance. Wrong. This is actually literally just what it says, a power adapter. So you take out your batteries, or if you didn't have any, and you just click it right into here. Using this port here, and this long cable that plugs into an outlet, you can play your Game Boy Advance without batteries. So people whose parents didn't want to buy batteries for them, or they didn't have any more batteries, they had this thing and they could just plug it into the wall and, well, they can turn on their Game Boy Advance and play. And I actually bought this brand new and decided I want to open it because I wanted to actually show it for a video and actually get a use out of it and try it out myself, because I guarantee one of these days I'm not going to have batteries with me and I'm going to want to use this somehow. And I'm going to go through this complicated process of just using this crap. But of course, we can't talk about the accessories without talking about the GameCube link cable. Plugs into there onto the top of the Game Boy Advance systems, and you plug it into your GameCube, and now you just turn it on and you are playing the Game Boy Advance as a controller for the Game Boy player on the GameCube, or games that required it as an accessory or as an option. You could play it with this, and honestly, the Game Boy Advance makes a really comfortable controller, but not nice for not being able to see what you're doing. Now, I will count this as an accessory, but this is the 1UP card cleaner for your consoles. You just plug it into the cartridge slot like this. I'm not going to do it because what happened still scars me to this day. And that is the fact that this thing broke my original Game Boy Advance SP, which is actually something that I didn't say when I first talked about why my original SP got taken out. This thing, I was doing it to clean it because it needed to be cleaned, and it wasn't running games properly. Even games that were like really good looking, it was just having a struggle, doing that. And so I was plugging it in, doing that, and what happened was it seem to have widened this and made it looser because games would just not fit right, and it just was a disaster. It actually made it worse. It did clean, however, because you can see the markings, so it did do that, but it worked for a while, just it made the cartridge slot really loose, and that was not what I wanted. So it kind of broke my system in a way, so I just throw this thing away. Now the final accessory that we're going to talk about is the e-reader. This was the thing I was mentioning with the other games that we're going to talk about here today. So the e-reader is its own little cartridge. You basically plug this into Game Boy Advances most of the time, but you can actually plug this into a SP. What you have to do is you have to open the game, open the hinge first, and then slide it on. As you can see, it just barely, doesn't touch it, but so it doesn't scrape it and scratch it. But you can use it like this. You just have to now run another link cable through the top here if you wanted to transfer stuff, which is really stupid. But most normal people back in the day would basically just take their Game Boy Advance that they had and just pop it into here, lining it up, and it's pretty big fit here. And this is a card slot, and you plug in your, link cable in, plug it into another Game Boy Advance SP if you want to use it for other games, or if you want to use it on the GameCube, which I will go ahead and demonstrate some of these things here. The GameCube I won't demonstrate, but at least transferring a game, a thing over, I will do. I'm going to go to my Game Boy Advance SP, go to single player, go to Super Mario Bros. 3, load into here. As you can see, I beat basically the entire game on here, all of them, all the files, I beat all of them. And, we are going to actually use a card. Now, this is an e-reader card, and as you can see, there's a small barcode that runs across the card, and it has to be a specific size, so you could theoretically print these out, but they have to be a specific size and on a specific type of paper, which is a little annoying. But this is a power-up card. This will give you the super leaf as an extra item to put in your inventory, and this kind of looks like on the back. I actually have a whole collection of these that actually get used in the game, and basically what you do here is in the game, you go ahead and you pull up the R tab, which there's the demo card, and then there's the power-up card. We're going to select power-up card. And then, LAC 2 is going to come pick us up and transport us to this area. Basically, I'm going to go over to my Game Boy Advance here, and all you got to do is go to Communications, and you want to click Game Boy Advance because that's how you link it. Just press A through here. It's going to connect it. And you're going to hit A. Then it's going to just connect. So basically, if you wanted to do this, you either had to own 2 Game Boys, or you had to have a friend that had one. And now you go ahead and do this. LAC 2 pops up over here. Now it says scan a power-up card. So we're going to go and attempt to do this. Now you need to do this at the right speed and at the proper way. So you need to have it like this. Go ahead and slide it on through. Oh, we did it. Connecting. He's going to come back over on this screen. And boom, communication complete. Power-up card scanned. We got a leaf, aka the raccoon tail. I always call it the leaf. Why? I don't know, but I just did. Anyway, so you can continue scanning cards or you don't have to. We're going to do no. But now I have the card, or the power-up, in my inventory just by scanning a card. And these have unlimited uses. And there's even exclusive cards that came from these packs. Now, these are the e-reader series packs, and there's Series 1 and Series 2. They each contained level cards, power-up cards, and demo cards. And these things are actually pretty hard to come by at a good price. They were very expensive when I was going to be buying them. Thankfully, I got them at a good time, like I did with most of my stuff. And I think with this one, I ended up having to pay a little more, which is unfortunate because I literally, at the time, I wanted it so bad, and instead of waiting, I ended up getting this, and these were brand new, by the way, and the way I made these, open, I cut a little thing on the top here to slide them out, open them up, and all that. So normally they look like this, and this is what some of the power-up cards in the back look like. But yeah, I kind of just opened it up at the top there, and kept the packaging because, well, that's part of the collecting, and I love these, and these look freaking awesome. These are cool art pieces. But there's exclusive power-ups in these cards, and there's exclusive secret levels that add to Super Mario Bros. 3. And I just figured that, you know what, I wanted these, and that's kind of one of the main gimmicks of the e-reader, which is a really cool accessory, but also this is a pain in the ass to keep up with nowadays. But as I was talking about Super Mario Bros. 3, when you bought a new copy of this, if it came with all the stuff in it, you would get always get a power-up card, and I think you would get a demo card, but I think it was only just one card, which was always a power-up card, and it was usually the Super Leaf. You always get this, and then you just have to go manually buy a e-reader yourself, and that's kind of how the whole e-reader thing works. And we're not done with the e-reader. We actually still have a couple things to talk about. So this did not use the e-reader, but as I explained earlier with the Japanese version, you could play the board game on here, but there's actually two versions. There's the board game version through this, and then there's a separate card game using the e-reader, which kind of sounds like hell. I'm sure it plays like garbage, but it's kind of a rarity and a unique item. So this is Mario Party E, the card game. I one day plan on playing this. I bought it used, unfortunately. But basically you manually scan cards. You play around, go around the board like normal, but the board is designed where there's like 3 slots that you have to fill with like different clothing pieces of different characters, and you gotta collect them all, which is a really strange thing, but basically you scan cards to, you know, get coins and stuff like that, or stars, and then basically you would play mini games on this, like, so you'd scan the minigame card, and then you as the player, who it's your turn and you land on this space to get the minigame, you play the minigame, you know, like on the e-reader like this. You scan the card and then play the minigame, and basically you either can have everybody surround you and watch, make sure you're not cheating, because there's a system in this where you can give multiple tries at these minigames, which is kind of bullshit, which is very, like, you can easily do like cheating BS with this crap, which is kind of funny. But a way I thought about doing it to solve this problem was get a small little TV at the end of the table and get your GameCube with the Game Boy player, plug it in, plug this into the GameCube, or plug, you know, however we want to do it, plug it into the GameCube, and then slide the card manually on the GameCube. That way you can play the minigame and everybody can see that you're not cheating on the minigame. But who the hell was going to do this back then? This just seemed like a big disaster piece, and it's just kind of funny because this is a part of the Game Boy Advance, but it's just part of the e-reader, so it's a really weird gimmick but unique, funny thing. And one day I'll get around to playing this. So alas, that was the Game Boy collection, and there was a lot of stuff here. Basically, it's just super cool, and I've pretty much completed my, I say pretty much, but I basically have completed my collection of Game Boy stuff, and I think I'm pretty happy with it overall, honestly. It's been a lot of fun collecting for these, and this is only just the start of the collection. Thank you for watching, because I had to get this all out, and funny thing is I'm recording this on a shirt on my bed, so yeah, that's kind of how I'm doing this. I could have just showed the drawer, but it's just so compact that I don't want to do that to you guys. It would be hard there to see stuff. So I took everything out and laid it out so I could show you everything that I got here. And I gotta say, I'm pretty happy with it, but there is more to come, so stay tuned.